answer.
Dan and Amy looking at Donna Shalala on CNN. She's the president of the Clinton Foundation. And if you're not keeping score, she looks like a character from a Tolkien novel.
Okay, easy there.
Remember what P.J. O'Rourke called her when he used to do his
putty
famous
face.
enemies lists in American Spectator?
Yeah, remind me? Putty face.
Nasty. Communist putty face molester of dogs. That's what you referred to, Shalala. Which, I don't disagree with. Speaking of Clinton, she released a letter yesterday.
Yeah, I have a little letter here.
A letter from her doctor, Lisa Bardak, who's the chair of internal medicine at Claremont Medical. I hear they're very good. And the upshot is, from Dr. Bardak, is my overall impression is that Mrs. Clinton has remained healthy and has not developed any new medical conditions this year other than a sinus and ear infection and her recently diagnosed pneumonia. She continues to remain healthy and fit to serve as President of the United States. There was a disclosure that we didn't know previously.
Right. What, the chest scan?
No, the
infection. Her heart's
infection. The sinus and ear infection, the surgical procedure she underwent in January of this year for that sinus and ear infection.
But we did learn the pneumonia. It's non-contagious bacterial pneumonia in her right lung only, the conservative lung.
Exactly. The conservative lung is bad. The left-wing lung is good, of course. Steny Hoyer, he's the House Minority Whip. He's Pelosi's mini-me. And he had this to say. It's interesting to hear this from Steny Hoyer on Clinton and her medical disclosures.
Yes, I think she should have. And I frankly think she ought to release a full medical report to make sure that the people understand that she is fully able to carry out the duties of President of the United States.
But no one's releasing their full medical report. Donald Trump's not doing it, and Hillary Clinton's not doing it.
Translation from Hoyer. The important point is the translation, which is what happened on Sunday is hurting Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. It's hurting Democrats, and they're trying to bail water. And there's a lot of Clinton allies who are jumpy about Clinton's capacity in the closing 7 weeks of the campaign. That's the translation from Steny Hoyer. Steny Hoyer's not saying that out of some desire for good government or transparency. They could care less. This is power politics. That's an admission of concern, is what you just heard there from Steny Hoyer. For more on Hillary Clinton, from somebody who's up close and personal with the Clinton family for some time, we're happy to be joined now by Gary Byrne. He was a Secret Service agent who protected the President Bill Clinton and the first family when they were the first family. He's also got nearly 30 years in federal law enforcement, U.S. Air Force Security Police, the Uniform Division of the Secret Service, and most recently as a federal air marshal. And he's the author of the best-selling book, Crisis of Character. A White House Secret Service officer discloses his firsthand experience with Hillary, Bill, and how they operate. Gary Byrne, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Good. Just give us the background on your experience with the Clintons and Hillary specifically, both in terms of character, thus the title of your book, as well as capacity.
Yeah. So my experience with the Clintons, basically with Mrs. Clinton, is that everything that you see and hear about her on the mainstream media is a complete facade. And the perfect example of this is this latest thing with her health. I mean, anybody can clearly see. I don't know if you want me to go through that now or talk more.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but anybody that's seen that video, now I'll remind you and your audience, I'm not a medical professional, but I am a former Secret Service Uniform Division officer. I used to actually help teach those tactics and procedures that you see the agents use when you see them protecting somebody. And when you first see this video with Mrs. Clinton, she's leaning against this metal pole. It's called a ballast. And clearly, if you look at her posture, she is stiff. She's staring straight ahead with her arms down beside her. And there's an aide on the left-hand side, a woman, who's holding her armpit. You hold something like that to control them. Look at her posture. And for the few seconds that she's on that video, you see her head pushed back. Now, again, I'm not a doctor, but those are signs you could possibly see when somebody might be having a seizure. Now, again, I'm not a medic, but I have seen many people have seizures over the years in my experiences when I worked at the White House, personal friends and family, that type of stuff. It's a strange behavior that you see. It's certainly not normal. There's something going on with it. And then a couple seconds later, you see the van pull up. what does usually happen when you see a vehicle pull up that you're getting into? You at least move and look at the vehicle, or she would possibly look at the agent to say, okay, can I get in? That's not what happens. She stays in that odd, straight posture. Mm-hmm. The African-American agent walks in front of the van. He pulls the door open. He goes back to the left-hand side and takes control of her arm from the woman. And then the man, I think, is the lead agent, walks around, and this is really telling. He walks between the open van that the protectee is supposed to get into and the protectee because he knows she can't move without his help. He walks in front of her. He takes her right arm, and then you see as they move her, she drops completely. She has no ability to control her own motion.
So are you saying that this has happened before because they knew exactly what to do? Is that the inference you're making?
First of all, I want to commend the agents. They're doing a great job, and this is what they do. But clearly, this is, in my observation, this is, they've seen this before. They know and that what's going on, that there's a medical issue. They've seen it before. And quite frankly, they've probably actually done what they're doing there more than once.
But now there was some criticism of the Secret Service for having to have her wait for as long as she did before the SUV pulled up. What's your reaction to that?
Because she left early.
Yeah, unfair criticism. Listen, she's having a medical issue. They have no way to control that. So when she's having this issue, it's time to go. They have to get her out of the public eye. Now, keep in mind, they're not. I mean, the Secret Service is trying to keep her out of the public eye to help them keep furthering this, facade or whatever. That's the part of their job. But what they're really trying to do is keep somebody from murder, an assassination. So when you see those agents, their movements covering up the camera, they might not even see the camera. But what they do know is that there's people out there that want to kill their protectee, and that's really what they're doing.
All right.
But as far as blaming the Secret Service for making her wait on the curb, they have got no control over that. They had a system set up. They had to leave early because of her health issue, and they adapted and they overcame it, quite frankly.
So are you surprised former President Bill Clinton, when, he's gotten his wife's diagnosis wrong a few times, he said that she's frequently had fainting spells, and also he said that she has flu, not pneumonia. Tell me about their relationship as someone who witnessed the alleged marriage.
Sure. When I protected them in the early 90s, the relationship, certainly wasn't like the one I witnessed with my parents or like I see now with my family. I generally believe that he has some feelings for her, but Mrs. Clinton is certainly an odd person. She has a very cold, disdain attitude. Unless the cameras are on, unless there's somebody there who appears to be a big donor or something. And these are things I experienced personally. As soon as it's the normal life and there's nobody around watching, she is very cold, very distant. And in my time, in the 8 years that I protected them, she showed a very clear disdain and dislike for the military, for law enforcement. And just as an example, I mean, I wasn't there when she had this incident the other day, but, based on what I saw the 8 years I protected her, as soon as she was able to, she paraded that detail for something they had no control over. That's just the way she is. In my time that I protected them, I stood close with an agent one time when he was driving her 3 days before. She got so angry sitting in the back of a limousine on the South Lawn that she hit him in the back of the head with a Bible. Just unacceptable behavior, and she's never changed, and she's always been like that.
I'm impressed she was carrying a Bible. She's carrying a Bible as a weapon, or why did she have a Bible?
No, they were going to some function where she was carrying a Bible, and my experience and my belief is her carrying a Bible is nothing but a prop.
And
based
so
on the way I've seen her behave, that's all it is.
So when you say she has disdain for the military, give us an example.
So I'll give you the first example that pops into my head is, and this is really more of a law enforcement thing, but one of my coworkers one morning was walking down the West Colonnade, getting ready to go off shift after protecting her all night long and her family, and say good morning to her, and she told him to go F himself. What she didn't know was, and she couldn't have known this, to be honest, but she did know he was a uniformed police officer. What she didn't know was 4 years before, he was in the U.S. Army on a mission to Somalia, where he got wounded by a sniper and received a Purple Heart on a mission from her husband. 4 years later, he's in the Secret Service Uniform Division, and the first lady of the man that sent him there tells him to go F himself.
Now, okay, all right. Well, that's just maybe she's not a morning person.
Don't tell me good morning ever.
I know this was 20 years ago, but did you ever see any incidents of a medical episode with Hillary or Bill, for that matter?
Well, yeah, there was, people get sick. They.
I mean, beyond just like beyond the flu or something that's ephemeral.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday there was a story out that President Clinton's former doctor, Dr. Mariana, she was a Navy captain when I knew her. She is about to release a book, and she says in her book that Mrs. Clinton had issues with blood clots to the point where she assigned a plainclothes medic to go with her. And I do remember that. I didn't remember the circumstances, but I do remember seeing a memo saying that from now on, be prepared that when you see Mrs. Clinton, that this Navy medic would be with her.
Oh, that's interesting.
Another telling story is when Bill Clinton first became president. I mean, when he first got into the White House, right after the inauguration, he did not have a presidential position yet. So President George H.W. Bush, his doctor, Byrne, offered to stay until President Clinton got his own doctor. On one of the first days that he went to give the president a checkup, somebody from the Clinton staff walked in into the doctor's office on the ground floor of the White House and handed the doctor these two small vials and told him that Bill Clinton got 2 shots of this a day. And the doctor said, okay, what is it? And he said, you don't need to know that. Just give him 2 shots a day. It's for his allergies. So, of course, the doctor refused to treat the president with this unknown medication. The Secret Service agent that was in there picked up the phone, and it went right up the chain of command. That's how I heard about it, even though I was right down the hallway when it happened in the Oval Office. But we were actually told in the Secret Service to be aware of any odd, requests from the staff and keep an eye on what they want to do with the president. And that story, you can actually research that story if you look up presidential positions. There's a story in the paper at the time about it, but it's got the White House spin on it where.
And didn't at one point in time that you actually had to protect Bill Clinton from Hillary because she wanted to attack him?
Did I ever have to? No. Did I fear I would have to? Yes. Based on the way I saw her behave and her ability just to snap into this dangerous anger, and you put that together with his inability to stop having affairs. Yes, I was afraid that one day she would stumble on him and she might physically attack him. It was discussed between myself, other uniform division officers, and agents.
Did you ever witness infidelity by Bill and or Hillary?
Well, yeah, I actually tell a story in my book. One Christmas, I'm walking across the ground floor of the White House, and I stopped to say hi to a couple co-workers, an agent and an officer outside the map room. And as I'm standing there talking to them, the Navy steward walks to the map room, and he has a clean shirt for the president. In the evening, he's going to get him to change his shirt. And as he opens the map room door, the steward is looking back at us, and we're looking into the map room, and there's President Clinton standing there face to face with Eleanor Mondale, making out like the high school seniors. And the steward's looking at us. When he sees our look at our face, he turns back and looks into the room and sees, when he sees the president, Eleanor Mondale, he gets embarrassed. He closes the door and he runs down the hallway. And of course, we just looked at each other and said, Merry Christmas, another day at the White House.
What about Hillary?
Now, I never witnessed her. To be honest with you, I never witnessed her showing any kind of emotion other than anger. I mean, she seems to have a very low opinion of most people, and only treats them halfway decently when somebody's looking. She really is not a nice person to ever work with.
All right. He is former Secret Service agent Gary Byrne. The book, Crisis of Character, a White House Secret Service officer discloses his firsthand experience with Hillary, Bill, and how they operate. Gary, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.